Well, I'll be darned. Brian Kelly gets it done on the road at Clemson at their Death Valley. A lot of people didn't think that he could pull it off, and to be honest, when they didn't take the points at the end of the first half, trailed 7 points going into it, I was a little bit concerned for LSU that this thing might not wind up the way that they would ultimately want it to, but they played lights out defense in the second half, and that's where we start where the game ended. Number 7 for the LSU Tigers. Harold Perkins Jr., we've all known that he is a rare athlete, that he possesses traits and physical gifts that few on this planet, few that play the game of football, possess or have ever possessed, and he flashed on the last play of the game. Not to say that Harold Perkins was the only guy on that defense that made impact plays. Whit Weeks was screaming all over the field. Number 40, his brother played a pretty good game, Wes Weeks as well. But I gotta tell you, it felt good to see Harold Perkins Jr. out there healthy off of that injury because he's such a talented player, a good kid, plays the sport with integrity, carries himself with high character, and for him to have that impact play at the end of the game, you can't really draw it up any better than that. LSU needed this one, and I'm going to start there because the Tigers and Brian Kelly have had to deal with these narratives the entire summer. They've had to hear from pundits, had to hear from people that they can't win week 1, that they just haven't been able to do it, so that means they're not going to be able to do it. A lot of times people like to formulate narratives and ideas based on the past that's going to determine what happens in the future. That's very difficult, especially when you're coming off of a disappointing season. Then the history with you at the head coach has not gone all that well. But this game in week 1 proved to the country, proved to college football that they have an elite defense. They have a great pass rush. They have a really darn good defensive back in number 4, Mansour Delane. This kid was fantastic all night in coverage. Really difficult group of wide receivers for Clemson. And we're talking about Bryant Wesco, TJ Moore. What really hurt Clemson was losing Antonio Williams. I mean, I'll argue that he's the best wide receiver of that bunch. Very productive kid. Had a great season last year. But for LSU, offensively, Garrett Nussmeier didn't pop off the stat sheet. Didn't have an incredible game passing the football, but he did enough. He did not make the turnover. That was really the thing. Ohio State beats Texas. Julian Sain doesn't make the turnover. We see the turnover on the other side of Marsh Manning. Garrett Nussmeier doesn't turn the ball over. We see the turnover from Cade Klubnik. So these quarterbacks making the right decisions at the right time, managing the game, and trusting their defense. I mean, we saw that Tom Allen's defense was great in that second half, even had flashes in the first that they could be pretty good. I just wish that there wasn't the injury from Williams. You always love to see these matchups, how they would play out if you didn't have the injuries. Everybody was fully healthy. Unfortunately, it's kind of like only week 1 or earlier in the season where you get to see teams typically at full strength, and when typically teams have full strength at the end of a season, we're talking about national title contenders. And that is exactly what LSU and Clemson are. Don't get it wrong, because Clemson lost this game by 1 score. That is a national contending team because they have a very good quarterback that just went up against a tough defense on this evening. There were players like number 33 in Wes Weeks. There's guys in that secondary, right? I mentioned Delane, but Whit having that impact. We've all known he's an All-American type player, but for him to flash like that week 1, it really was exciting to see the guys that you talk about all the time. I certainly talked about him in the preparation for this game, him and Harold, and for them to have that impact, it was just a fun watch. I know a lot of people don't like these low-scoring games, 17-10, only 27 points, far below the over-under, but you get to see good quality defensive play, not the blown coverages. You get to see a bit more of a chess match in it going back and forth. Now, let's go to the Clemson defensive line, because we heard all offseason from people saying that T.J. Parker and Peter Woods are 2 of the top 10 best players in college football, and they very well might be. That Cade Klubnik's the best player in college football. He still could be, even after this loss. But For Clemson, you were expecting a big play from Peter Woods at some point. For Clemson, you were expecting TJ Parker to make one of those splash plays that we'd seen last year. After all, Emory Jones, Will Campbell, they're gone for LSU. Their irreplaceable tackles are now replaced because they're off to the NFL, and they bring in some new players there to those positions. The only guy that really popped are two of them. We had number 5 and then number 47, Sammy Brown. Sammy Brown looked really good out there. Number 47 is flying. Also, Wade Wood has 1747. Sometimes you get it mixed up. Like, was that Woodaz or was that Sammy Brown making the tackle 1747? They did very well on the evening. But I'll tell you the play that decided this football game. At the end, you could say, obviously, could have made a completion if Harold doesn't get there. But LSU's got the ball down inside the red zone, and it's a tie game. It's 10-10. And they throw that fade route to Green. Big kid, 6'7", and Avian Terrell is in coverage. And Avian Terrell, by just about everybody that knows the game of college football, is a top 5 cornerback. One of the best corners in the game. But again, they mentioned on the broadcast, Avian Terrell is 5'10", going up against a 6'7" tight end in Green, and was just not able to defend the ball. You're talking about a guy that's played a lot of basketball, and Avian Terrell gives up that touchdown. It happens on your best corner, one of the best corners on any team, or the best corner on just about every team in the country, and that was like, whoa. When a big play happens on one of your best players, there's a certain level of gut punch that just takes a little bit of the will out of you. And Clemson had their opportunities to get back into it. Obviously, the opportunity on the very last possession, good field position, ball at the 43, a minute 50 to work with. You can argue, whether they should have called the timeout at 2:27 or let 27 seconds run off the clock for the 2-minute timeout. I happen to think that maybe you call a timeout at 2:27, just give you a little bit more time to work with, and then you get a first down or two. The 2-minute timeout comes in there, you're able to regroup, but don't really see that having truly impacted this game. What really did impact this game, though, was Clemson's inability to run the football. And that starts with the foundational fact that they don't have a great back. They don't have an Maffa. They don't have an ETN. We all knew that, but I didn't think that they were not going to be able to run the ball whatsoever. 20 carries for 31 yards, less than 2 yards an attempt. That's pitiful. Even if you're going up against one of the best defenses in college football, you can't run the ball 20 times for only 30 yards. Cade Klubnik on this game, 8 attempts, he had a yard. I know with sacks, and they take it away. It wasn't like he was under duress, got sacked a bunch of times in this game. I believe it was only, a total of once LSU got to Cade Klubnik twice on the game. Yeah, Harold Perkins and Woodland had the sacks, but they couldn't run the football. And what does that mean when LSU is able to put 6 guys in the box and they can stop the run? Well, holy shoot. Your guys can lay back in that 2 high safety. You can take away the deep shots. They ended up losing Antonio Williams, very much so hurt. And we ended up seeing guys that we're not so familiar with catching passes. And that fully impacted the game. When you're not picking up 4 or 5 yards on first down, it's more like no gain, 1 yard, 2 yard, and you're second and long the entire night, or second and 6. You're not able to pick up 4 or 5 to set up third and very manageable, and now you're sitting in third and long once again, putting your quarterback in the shotgun and having to deal with all the stunts and stuff that Tom Allen has experience with as a very good coordinator. Just think that Dabo had heard so much about the run game, and that being the largest concern, obviously. You hear the dog in the background. He's upset that they can't run the football either. He thought that the pug back here thought they should have addressed the run game a bit more in the past. But it's just a matter of, we look at some of the best teams can run the football the most effectively or stop the run. LSU, 31 carries for a 108, 3.5 a carry isn't a great performance. But Caden Durham, 74 yards on the night, had the touchdown when he needed it down there by the goal line. We saw Nussmeier using his legs when he needed to, evading pressure. They brought up that great statistic the sack rate of only about 10% or 9% when he's under pressure, being able to evade it, throw the ball away. That is so important. Not taking those negative plays, not forcing it into coverage like he did last year, costing them 2 or 3 games with terrible interceptions and giveaways. Instead, throwing the ball away, living for second down, living for third down, punting the football instead of throwing a bad interception. And it wasn't like Cade forced the ball. He just really oversailed that pass up the seam, overthrowing that. And, that turned out to be a major thing that you would think of in this game would be that throw and not seeing Cade Klubnik look comfortable throughout the night. And a lot of that has to do with how sticky that coverage was from LSU, because that they could get pressure, send in Whit Weeks, send in Wes Weeks, sending Harold Perkins. You didn't really know where the pressure was going to come. A lot of simulated looks where it looks like there's going to be 4, 5, 6 guys rushing, and it's 4. Simulated means like a simulation. It looks like there's going to be 6 guys or 5 guys coming. It's going to be a blitz, but it's not. The simulation of a look of a blitz that doesn't end up being a blitz because 4 players end up rushing. We got to see the versatility of the defensive play calling. So we'll go back to the weapon side now for LSU, because clear standout, Aaron Anderson. Aaron Anderson, 100 yards in this game. Juwan Johnson didn't go off, but 31 yards for 5 catches, and it felt like Johnson's catches, we saw in that one possession, didn't he get targeted 3 times in a row? We heard a lot about, and it's certainly in the game, right? Barry Brown for LSU at that 99 speed in the EA Sports and Madden game. Not the crazy explosive play, but getting the guys, even if you're averaging 5-6 yards a grab and they're effective and it's on a 3rd and 4 and you're able to pick up first downs when you're catching the football, those are huge, and just the threat of taking the top off of you all night long. Now, what popped for Clemson for me when watching the game, like what really came off of the screen was, all right, they've got some really, those 7s, it's just like those 7s, those kids, it just flashes between Woodaz and Brown. That's first of all. And of course, I would say that TJ Parker and Peter Woods in most games flash, but what flashed in this game was the inability to get up the field, to have a true impact. Like in a lot of other ACC games, like they're just in the backfield almost every single play, that they're able to really change what an offense will do. Didn't fully look like LSU did that. Now, they did play decently. It's not like they were completely erased off the stat sheet, didn't do anything at all, still impacted the game, changed what LSU wanted to do, made them uncomfortable. Of course, scoring 17 points is not ever. They wouldn't take that probably in any game whatsoever that they play. Maybe against Texas or Ohio State, if you said, right now, I'll give you 17 points. Do you take it here on the spot? Do you take this $1 million? Do you take the points that they would? But overall, LSU, these fans are in a position they haven't been in a while, and staring down at that schedule of what they have winning a game like this as far as their chances at getting to the college football playoff. Obviously, doesn't impact the SEC race, but it kind of does when it gives you confidence against your other opponents. And then as for Clemson, you get a get-right game next week, and then it's Georgia Tech. It's Georgia Tech on the road, and all of a sudden, very similarly to Texas, who lost, they've got Florida on the road in a couple of weeks. Clemson's got Georgia Tech, obviously a good team there. Haynes King, Jamal Haynes are going to have to deal with all of that. So that wraps it up. LSU 17-10 on the road there at Death Valley. Incredible environment. College football is back. Brian Kelly gets the best of Dabo Swinney. Could we see this game once again in the college football playoff? Absolutely, sign me up for that. I would love to see it. It feels like a quarterfinal matchup that we could ultimately wind up seeing. I believe everybody would really like to see a rematch and see that one when all these teams get a bit more comfortable on the offensive side of the ball, and the quarterback play is a little bit more polished and elevated. But I appreciate you so much. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more content in the future. It's so fun to break these down, to preview games, so get ready for all of that stuff. Going to have all that content coming out every single week. So I appreciate you so much, and take care.
Best player in college football.
That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is
going to be a classic.
Josh Blunder, hi everybody, I'm Josh Blunder. To the 40, 35, 30,